Well, did you know it's estimated that 65% of all children learn differently? Well, our first guests are child education experts and best-selling authors. This husband and wife team, they have written the book, The 3D Learner, to help parents with a 7-step process to help their child go from stress in the classroom to success. And we welcome Mira and Mark Halpert to Virginia this morning. Great to see you, folks. Thanks so much for coming in, all the way from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
We're glad to be here.
Well, tell us about the 65% number where children learn differently, because an educator is standing in the front of the classroom, they're presenting all of that information. You would think that the student would hear it and process it all the same, but not so.
You'd think that, right? Well, schools are, over 150 years old or more, and they haven't changed much for the logical, sequential, auditory learner. A, B, C, you should know D, E, and F. Well, but now kids are way more visual. They have all the media, multimedia things in front of them, right? And these kids are global learners. They see the big picture first. So they want to know, tell me a little more about E and F, because I bet I have a better way to be able to get there. And they're shot down at every morning. And honestly, we're talking about the most creative kids, our Edisons, Einsteins, Charles Schwab's, Steve Jobs kinds of kids that are having a difficult time in school when they're really so smart.
Yeah, are they labeled differently as well, these 3D learners?
They're not labeled based on their strengths, they're labeled based on their weaknesses. So if a child has a problem with reading, it might be labeled a learning disability or dyslexia or ADHD, when in fact, they're bright right brain learners who learn best when they see and experience information.
So how does one classify a 3D learner? How would you identify one in the classroom?
Well, the child that may be fidgeting, that's sitting still, and a lot of times those kids are labeled as, oh, well, that's an attention issue. A lot of times the kids are not learning the way everybody else was. We've gotten to a point where we're trying to teach kids to read all the same way, by breaking up and sounding out words. And that works for a lot of kids. It doesn't work for everyone. And these kids, they're doing so many other things that being able to have language and talk about what words really mean. And we sort of fell into that as parents. We recognized we had a difficult time too with our own kids.
Tell us about how a person with being a 3D learner can apply that and then succeed in the classroom.
That's a really good question. So the point really is that you need to be able to give the kids an idea about what's expected. So it's kind of like a preview, right? Just like the preview that you gave on the show about what's coming up. And that they have to be able to be prepared. We found out that these kids think in pictures, meaning words have meaning, right? And they actually have a different meaning for you than they might have for me, and we need to be able to get to the bottom of what that means for a child so that they actually really understand it. So that reading becomes an adventure, right? For a lot of kids, reading is, words are in front of them and they're having to be able to decode it and sound, and they don't really understand it. So for the classroom teacher, they may find that the child is a troublemaker or is just not listening and not following directions, and then they send the report, and parents are going to get reports home soon, right, for the first quarter. And so parents are like, oh, now what am I supposed to do? And we actually wrote the book as a guide to help parents be able, and parents and grandparents, huge piece of this, recognize what's right for these kids, meaning, and they're the ones that really know them, to be able to try and get the best help they can.
You have this little device here. What is this right here,
Well,
Mira?
so I'm using this as a whole.
It's not a security blanket, right?
No, I promise it's not. We've found that when kids get, and by the way, a lot of these kids have a huge amount of anxiety, and they found that when they get anxious, they don't breathe. So we just found this neat tool to be able to say, when I do this, I want you to breathe in. And when I put it out, I want you to almost blow to be able to breathe out.
And they're becoming more full.
And they become full, and then they actually become focused, and then oxygen comes into their body, and guess what? Their brains start to be able to read.
Mark, tell us about your child that was classified as a 3D learner and the trouble that she had.
So she had trouble really starting in first grade with reading, and by the time we got to 8th grade, the guidance counselor said in a meeting where there were 9 people on the other side of the table, and the 2 of us, and our daughter.
That's intimidating.
Oh, just a little?
Not to me. And they said, your daughter has a wonderful personality, which is almost the word you never want to hear because the next word is but. Her reading comprehension's 3 years below grade level, and she's not college material. And I turned to my daughter and I said, Julie, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, the teacher I never had. And the gentleman said, you could be a teacher's aide. And then Mira became a mom on a mission. how do we help Julie succeed?
And how's she doing now?
She's doing terrific. One, she gained 4.2 years in 7 months after she
Right.
got the
Just
3D
in
Learner program. And today she's got the most wonderful kids. She's teaching in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She's teaching highly gifted kids in 5th grade. And they're lucky to have this young lady as a teacher, and she's lucky to have them.
She truly
because
is the
she's
teacher she
teaching a bunch of bright right brain learners.
Well, let me tell you something. Your daughter is lucky to have you as parents. I can really say that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got some information right here. The book is the 3D Learner. It's now available, and we wish you continued success, Mark.
The other thing is parents can go to the website, www.3dlearner.com. There's an assessment there. There's a guide for them, and then we're going to be providing them with more information.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good luck
We
in your travels.
appreciate your
All right.
time.
Nice to see you, Mary and Mark.